Welcome back to the Pro Series podcast and Happy New Year. This is the first episode of 2024, and today is episode 120, and we have another reoccurring guest. His name's David Stumpf. He's an architect here in Pittsburgh. So before we go start this episode, please go back and listen to his episode we shot in 2022, and we kind of catch up with some of the jobs that he talked about, the influencer house, and some of the other jobs. He actually brings up the influencer house and shows pictures of it, so it's pretty cool. But before we go into this episode, please like, subscribe, and review this podcast like always. And I hope you enjoy episode 120 with David Stumpf. David, thank you so much for hopping back on to the Pro Series podcast. Great to have you back on.
Well, it's great to be back, Eric. Thank you very much.
I should have looked before we hopped on the call on when you were on last, like the number of the episode.
Episode 46. I actually went
Oh,
back
you
to be sure
remember?
we were. Yeah, I went back the other day to make sure that we weren't going to be talking about the exact same stuff we just talked about.
Oh, okay. Do you remember what date that was posted? Was that spring
Oh,
22?
it was definitely over a year ago.
Okay.
It was definitely over a year ago. I mean, you're on episode 118.
118 is this week. Yeah.
So more time has passed since you started the podcast and I was on than I
Oh,
was on last till now. So it's definitely been over a year, I'd say.
I mean, yeah, I'm just going through this thing. Like I'm about to enter year 3 of the podcast, which is insane. I can't believe I've actually stuck to one episode a week. That surprises me.
I mean, it's a testament to your character, and it also shows the massive growth potential of a podcast. I mean, podcast is probably like the hardest medium to grow on, and if you stay consistent, it's the sky's the limit because you're the only one that's doing that. People can go back, look at the old library, and see, oh, he's still here, he's still doing this. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you. And that's something I'm a big podcast listener, and I always like, subscribe or follow or whatever you do on your like the Apple podcast. And then I'm like, this person hasn't posted an episode in months. Like, what's going on here? And then I just unsubscribe because they
right.
don't listen anymore.
Right. It's like you almost want to stay current. There's a lot of historians. Like I'm a big podcast listener too, and I'll listen to business podcasts. I'll listen to leadership podcasts, but I also have a huge chunk of history podcasts I listen to, and those guys they'll do like 6-hour podcasts because you really got to dive deep. But you're only
Mhm.
getting like once every 3 months, and it's like I don't,
Yeah.
I'll look back into you when I remember again.
Yeah. Do you like to listen to a lot of architectural podcasts?
I tend to listen to only two. There's a few. Uh, if you don't mind, I'll name drop them.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're pretty good. The one is Business of Architecture.
I've heard of
It's
them.
like there's a consultancy, and then they use their podcast as a way to highlight their clients or kind of explain to you how you can be a business owner.
Yeah.
It's dry, it's very dry, but it's very informative.
Hmm.
Uh, and then there's Life of an Architect. And it's by Bob Borson. I think your Instagram story the other day, you asked who should I interview, and I said Bob Borson should be one of them.
Yeah, I did reach out to him, I believe. I'll
Okay,
have to follow up. I'll have to follow
yeah.
up.
If you get him, it'll be good. He's his podcast. I can't think of his co-host. His name's Andrew. I can't think of his last name, but his name's Andrew, and it's very conversational.
Mhm.
It's very like educational in a way that it teaches young kids what an architect is and also potential clients, but it also dives into a lot of meat of, I guess, inside information about architecture for those practicing or those in school. So it's, but it's all kept like very light and fun. Whereas some of the other stuff, the other podcasts that are out there are way too serious or just like, highfalutin in a way
Mhm.
where it turns me off so much. I don't care about your Ivy League education. I don't care that you're like on the cover of all the magazines. I'm a Pittsburgh guy, blue collar, and I'm in the weeds of it every single day.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be real out here. I don't need any of the extra stuff that some of these guys are trying to present them as.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's a big turnoff for me. And then also when the podcast, not saying that my voice is good for a podcast, but some of these people, they sound like a news anchor, and that drives me crazy. I hate
Yes. Yeah.
like
It's yeah, I'm like, I don't know. The NPR stuff, back when podcasting first became popular, NPR was like at the top of the list. And I would
yeah.
listen to some of their stuff, but after a while it gets old.
Mhm.
You Joe Rogan's the number one podcaster for a reason. It's because he's having a conversation, and
Exactly.
it's almost like you're a fly on the wall of these two people just having a legitimate conversation. So, or it doesn't get lectury where some of those newscaster type podcasts might get a little too lectury, and I'm like, it's just such a turn off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, you bring up Joe Rogan, and then if you look at the top five podcaster out there, there's Joe Rogan, there's Alex Cooper, there's all these mind blank of the one that I watch on YouTube.
um do you watch the Iced Coffee Hour? Speaking
No.
of like business and social media oriented, it's Graham Stephan and Jack Shelby. Like
Okay.
Graham Stephan, he's like a finance YouTuber,
Yeah.
uh, and they've created this podcast that's like exploded because it's conversational, and like it's interview format, kind of like yours, but it's conversational, and they highlight well, they started as YouTubers and content creators, and they've kind of grown to people that are a little bigger in that space. And I feel like that's interesting because it's also like, how do you run your business? How does this work? What are the finances of the business? And that's what everybody wants to know,
Yeah.
especially in that space, and the people that follow those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you listen to a podcast to either escape from your life or to learn.
Right, right. And that's what I do. I'm like, uh, I'm not the escapism kind of person. I'm out here trying to learn. So
Okay.
if I'm finding a podcast, it's gotta bring some kind of a value or something that I'm gonna turn and apply to business in some capacity. Um like those are a couple that I listen to, and I'll listen to one that it's got, even the guys that run this one, they make fun of the name of it, but it's My First Million, and it's a bunch of like Silicon Valley tech business owners who talk about how they started their business and how they grew it. And it's so different from the design world and the architecture world, the construction, but the fundamentals of business are the same. And if you can learn something from somebody who's in this sector of the economy and apply it to your business, even if it's like something minute or something that, might seem trivial, but it can help you. I, I don't know. That's just how I've always been, kind of inquisitive in that capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about podcasting. Let's
Yeah.
uh let's get into where we left off last time. You had a couple open projects that were going on. Tell me about
Right.
that. Let's start with the influencer house. How'd that go?
So that house, the project, it had its ups and downs. Um, Overall, my relationship with the owner stayed pretty good throughout the entire thing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it was fantastic. She's absolutely awesome to work with, and I learned a lot from her too because she's kind of a social media mogul in her own capacity. Um, she is on every single platform you can think of,
Mhm.
and she shares basically her entire life, but she also builds characters for specific platforms. So that project has worked out really well. It took about 2 years to go from start to finish. And in that time, we went through several different contractors. We've seen the gambit of substance abuse from some of the contractors, to not showing up for work whenever they were supposed to just ghosting her high and dry after having made payments. It's um it's it's taught me a lot about how to select the right contractor, but also how to run a project, and how to guide my clients through those kind of projects as well.
Mhm.
But the home turned out beautifully, and if you want a screen share, I can jump on and show you a couple of
Absolutely.
those pictures. And the goal being that we end up showing this or having it published in a magazine. So we're not going to share anything on social media until we do that, because some of them, like Architectural Digest, they don't allow you to have published anything. So hopefully this doesn't count, but we'll
Oh,
we'll see.
yeah. Whenever I get the notification, I'll press it. That's
Yeah, of course. I'll see. Let me see. We call this one the cozy cabin. So like I've shared a few things about it, but not a whole lot specifically. But I'll be able to talk a little bit once I pull these
so.
images up.
Did she buy this house and want to renovate it for herself, or what was the whole?
Oh, you've disabled screen sharing.
Did I really? Oh,
Yeah,
did I?
that's all right.
Let me see.
You'll probably edit this part out.
I don't even know that was a notification. Where do I do that?
Not sure. It just says host disabled participants screen sharing.
I won't now. It says who can
Got
share
it.
all
Okay.
participants.
So I'll just jump up and do this one. There we go. So, all right. So this is the cozy cabin. So this home was it was a home that was built on this like tiny plot. It was a farm that was subdivided by a family, and then they built a bunch of different cabins on this land. They put a road off of a main road, like a private lane, and then built these houses all along it. I I learned a little bit more on the day of the photo shoot about this house specifically, but this one, it was built, we know, before the 60s, probably the 50s or the 40s. And then another member of the family came back from the Vietnam War. He bought this house from the family, from his other family members, added two bedrooms off of it. And that was the condition of the house that when my client purchased it. But this house, prior to him buying it, was home to 10 people. So it was a family of 10 living in a one bedroom house with one bathroom. And as it stands, it's 1,200 square feet. So you take two bedrooms off, it's probably like 900 square foot house that 10 people were living in. And then we, like, you fast forward to 2020 when my client purchases it, it's she moved from LA to Pittsburgh because her former husband was from Pittsburgh. And when they separated, she purchased this house for herself, and with the goal of, this is going to be a set for her social media. And you could see a lot of that influence in this photo here specifically.
Mhm.
We'll jump to another photo. Um, a lot of her character throughout this comes through as well. She was very bohemian in her design aesthetic, but also design aesthetic known as Japandi, which has Japanese and Scandinavian influences, and you kind of just mesh that all together. And I know, Eric, before we started, we were talking about how a lot of architects really don't have the interiors as part of their practice, but sometimes that's something that I work with my clients on, and she has very, very specific tastes. So she knows a lot of what she wants, but doesn't know how to make that come to life. And
Yeah.
so, I worked with her in helping her to take her palette and apply it to this house. So, and that comes from my time working for a boutique firm that did interiors and architecture. So I did get a bit of that education.
Mhm.
Um, we we have birch cabinets. They're all from it looks really high end, and that was the goal of what we were going for. But these are all from Cabinets to Go.
No
And
way.
yeah, and let me jump back. I'll go back to the
They
site.
have that type of door style, that slat look, or is it
Yeah,
just
so
a hot thing?
oh no, so we hacked it. So this is
Okay.
they're all Cabinets to Go. It's their European modern collection in I believe it's birch finish. I have to check. But it's a non-finish. We got it sent to us non-finished, and all we had the contractor do was apply polyacrylic, because polyacrylic doesn't stain. it's water based. So unlike polyurethane, which is oil based, it doesn't yellow the wood as you apply it, the finish, and it keeps that natural look. Whereas if you did polyurethane, you're gonna get that yellowing, and that's not what we wanted. We wanted that light and airy natural feel.
Yeah.
But you go back to this image with the slats. We took 3/4 by 3/4 strips of birch and we applied it to the face. And so now on the left and right, on the right side, you have a cabinet that is pantry cabinet, and like for brooms and stuff like that. We have
Yeah.
a breakfast little coffee bar area, and then on the left hand side, that's a secret passage. So you open those up, and that's where the original access to the basement was. And so now our cabinet allows you to access the basement, and it's absolutely perfect. I think it turned out so well. The only thing we didn't do was piano hinges, and I wish we would have done piano hinges there. Here's another shot of that where you could start to see that. And it's the testament of, like, if you think outside the box, you take something that somebody else has already created, like a cabinets to go kind of company, and you're applying that outside of the box mentality to this, you can really achieve anything. And we're really lucky. By this point, she had found a contractor that was really good to work with, and those guys executed this flawlessly.
Yeah. And it
Um,
shows that you don't have to break the bank to make it look like $1 million.
exactly. It wasn't until the end where she started to break the bank, because
Yeah.
her social media presence started to take off, and she was doing really well. Where she's like, "Wow, maybe I'll import some stuff." Um, but those beams that are in the middle of the room here, those were original to the house, so we wanted to play
Really?
that up.
Huh.
Yeah, we wanted to play that up and showcase it as, there's this warmth and this character to this house that you know we didn't anticipate, but
Yeah.
we want to showcase. And it started as a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and we converted it to a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. So there's a master bedroom, I'll show you here in a second, that has a master bath. That was the original, and then we incorporated this whole new bathroom that is like a Turkish bath. Um, and the windows there, there's these massive picture windows that are in they're kind of in our living room, but then we also have some that correspond from our sunroom here. And those windows are on the same axis, and we added all of that. We also opened up the wall between the sunroom and the kitchen, and it's exactly what you would have expected from a hunting cabin.
Yeah.
And now it's this like bohemian retreat. It's very cool.
So what did you say she's doing with it now? Is she keeping it for herself or?
As of right now, she's keeping it for herself.
Okay.
Um, she's got a boyfriend from out of state, and he's going to be moving up here. And her goal is to maybe Airbnb it eventually.
Oh, that'd be
So
amazing.
maybe you'll be the first to know as soon as I find out if she's going to Airbnb it. Then we'll let your viewers know, and they can be the first to come and stay here.
Completely.
Um, and this is the bathroom that we added. It's almost like a Turkish bath in a way. It's
Yeah.
all tile. We have concrete sinks that were. She originally wanted that to be like stone slabs imported from Turkey, which we didn't end up doing. It. I think that one came from Detroit from a manufacturer over there.
Okay.
Wall hung toilet. It was going to be a wet room, but we relocated where the water, the faucets are, and everything like that. So now the water doesn't spray into the room. It's far enough back that it's it allows it kind of just allows it to be completely open, because the water doesn't actually spray out into the rest of the room. It's
Okay.
I was iffy about it at first, but she says it works. So and then we have a cooler tub, drop-in cooler on the right-hand side, and a trim of like a shelf there of green granite or green marble. Sorry, it was green marble. And when they were installing it, it split in half. And this is something new that I learned, but in the Japanese aesthetic, if there's something that's broken, they repair it, but then they use gold leaf and like gold flake to decorate and enhance the break. So they somehow they celebrate the the imperfections in everything. And I found that absolutely beautiful. And when you see this in person, you don't really see it in the photograph, but when you see it in person, it's something to be like, um, it's something to be celebrated. And I really like the way that turned out.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thing.
Well, yeah. And you could see some of the original wood come through in in this area too, kind of tied it together. Let's see if we can.
Do you like doing the renovational side of it or the new construction?
I think both.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's something to be said for both sides of it. But there's also a little bit that is left to be desired from new construction that you can get from renovation and vice versa. Um, but Pittsburgh's a tough market for people to be inventive with new construction as compared to renovation. It seems to be there's more creative outlet on the renovation side where new construction people are seeing something that's like the I guess the thought leaders in our space, like the Joanna Gaines or the McGee and Co. They're pushing a certain look,
Yeah,
and because that's everywhere, um, the the not so design savvy clients find that enthralling in some capacity. So a lot of that work ends up being geared towards those styles, which kind of leaves me, um, I don't know, it kind of leaves me like, there could be so much more we can do here. And
yeah.
uh,
They
yeah,
take the
so
trains like the Bible when you go to like LA or Miami or somewhere like that. They want to be outside the box.
right, right. Like for this home, it's the design aesthetic is one like overarching theme, but each room starts to have its own personality. Like this is the master bedroom here, and this space we built the bed into the wall, and we
That's
brought
cool.
yeah, we brought the corner is all windows. And so now because we have all these windows and it faces into the woods, you get this like Pinteresty feel.
Mhm.
You've seen these images all over Pinterest or maybe not so much Instagram, but it's like this idea of an Airbnb that everybody wants because
Yeah,
then you're cozy, but you're surrounded by nature. And we were able to make that happen for her. And let me see if I can get a picture of the headboard here. Even the headboard, the way we uh I guess the way we designed it is it's got a layer of cushion and fabric on top of it, but then we bring those brass elements in with little lights and plugs and everything like that. So you can throw your phone up there and have that charge while you're enjoying the view. And tell you what, when it snows, it's absolutely fantastic.
I bet. But
Yeah.
does she have any blinds in it now?
No.
Oh.
And I guarantee you she never will. Like she's that kind of person.
See, it's not that I'm scared for people to see me. I'm just scared like at night when people like look in. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
no one will ever be in that woods, but still, that just terrifies me. I feel like it's just like a scene of horror film.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's its own thing. But that's basically that whole house.
it looks good.
It Yeah, I appreciate it. That I was super excited about that one. And we were talking off air about this, but it was the first project that I've had professionally photographed. And I think that takes this to another level.
Yeah,
Not only for my my portfolio and everything like that, but it's going to allow me to showcase that to potential magazines that we're going to shop it around to try and get published. And I think it's going to do better than anything I could have done. I we as designers have a specific eye, and we can really showcase something through a photograph ourselves in a capacity if we know how to use our cameras. But a photographer knows how to do it on a completely different level. That's a just as much as um, home design is an art, photography is too. And I'm very willing to pay a professional to showcase my project in the best light possible.
I agree. Yeah, when that's something like people always want to design their homes, and they might be really good at like decorating their house, but when it comes to design work and they're renovating their kitchens and they make so many mistakes because they just don't know, and it's not their fault. It's just that's not their professional job. Like they don't
Right. Right.
the experience of doing it. And that's why when I would design a kitchen and a client would, if I take on a client like that, I'd I'll let them be more involved in it, the design part of it. But you can't close them off or you're not going to get the job, which is another topic we'll talk about, losing a job. Um, but it's those clients can be challenging, but it's also if you give them the little free reign and give them their ideas and try to make their ideas happen functionality like wise, like actually work, that could be a client for life.
Yes. Yeah. And I think um if you're truly genuine in that,
Yeah.
it helps build that relationship. And I think with this client specifically, we've we've built a good relationship. And so she plans, there's a carport on the property that she's got chickens in right now, and
Oh,
eventually
really?
she's gonna want to take it down and put up another like shelter. She's talking about wanting to do something out of shipping containers, maybe as like a guest house. So that's already something she's brought to my attention and saying,
Yeah.
let's try to work on something like that for moving forward. And if you're that person that is genuine and wanting to help somebody succeed in their project, that's what's going to help build that relationship and help you grow in your career too.
Shipping container idea is a good thing. That's something that hasn't really touched down in Pittsburgh. I had a someone on the podcast last year or the year before from Roxbox, and they do
Okay.
specialty out mostly like shipments of the shipping containers, but they make them into bars and stuff for um, all kinds of places.
Are they in Cleveland? I think I heard this one. Are they in Cleveland or
I'm not sure where they are.
there? I think I know that one. In Harrison City, of all places, there's a guy who started a company called it's like Mantainers or something like that, or Man Containers, and he's basically building these little outbuildings for you. I drive by it every once in a while
That's funny.
when I'm going to check out projects. Yeah. But there's a couple people doing it. And back in 2015, when I was working for a boutique firm in the South Side, we had a client who they're pretty prolific in the city in development work
Mhm.
and real estate. They have a real estate wing and a development wing. And they bought in Lawrenceville an old warehouse and converted it into two townhouses. It was kind of narrow warehouse, and we put shipping containers on the top for a party deck, so it was a three-story townhouse. And then on the right-hand side, they bought empty lot, which is essentially the size of a townhouse in Lawrenceville. And if you're familiar with Pittsburgh, that's like a 20-foot lot
Yeah.
on a hillside. And that was going to be 6 shipping containers stacked up to create a third townhouse for the property. And I think they called it the cargo lofts. So if you're ever interested, you can Google cargo lofts Pittsburgh and it'll probably pop up. But that third townhouse never got built. I'm not sure if that's something they're still waiting for, but the other ones are occupied by now. And then I saw somebody recently post they're trying to do that in like Highland Park, but
Really?
I, yeah, they were touting, "Oh, this is the first thing ever built shipping containers." I'm like, "No, it's not. No, it's not." And $800,000 is not. Shipping containers are supposed to be a in some capacity a way to do affordable housing, and it
Oh,
doesn't look good for $800,000. I could just say it. That's all. I'll keep my
yeah.
mouth shut about the rest of it.
I just looked up cargo loss in Pittsburgh. They look pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and that's is that the rendering or is that the actual?
Rendering.
Yeah, they look really close to the rendering.
Okay, I
I think they're
found.
like, yeah, and they're like real cool, real cool. The way they turned out, and the I wasn't really on that project. It was just in the office, so I got to see it happen. Um, but the one of the architects that was on that project, her and her husband now own their own practice here in the city too, and they're doing cool stuff like that. So
Very
it's good
cool.
to see we do have some innovation here, and it's not all just the same old cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah, I feel like as the city grows and progresses, we are kind of getting outside of that bubble we've been in for so long.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I mean, social media is a testament too, because now we're seeing the stuff that's happening in cities like Austin,
Yeah.
where they're like progressive in design and construction, and now we're seeing it like slowly trickle in here. I mean, we've had guys like Eric Fisher who have been doing great, fantastic modernist work and like this out of the box thinking for a long time, but um, they're so like hyper niche
Mm.
that there isn't a lot of other people that are like focusing in on that. So now it's good to see we're starting as a city and as a local culture to expand upon that.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a part of this industry. Well, let's segue into a topic that you brought up before our call that I think is a great topic. I think a lot of people struggle with if it's construction, design, architect, real estate too, is losing a lead or a customer or a project or a client. I know that happened
Yeah.
recently to you. So, what is your advice on that?
So I
You're
could
still trying to figure it out.
well, it's I'm still working through it. It's tough, man. It's like it's something that none of us want to have happen. But
Yeah.
if we go to the lead side of things, I send out a lot of proposals that people either just never call me back or they'll scoff and say, I can't believe this costs this much. And my proposals are they're detailed. I take my time. I take a couple hours. I write your proposal. It's not like I'm boilerplating this. And I'll, I'll bullet point everything. And so when you lose you lose a lead or you lose something in that capacity where you've sent out a proposal and you think that you're going to get a project in return for this, it's you kind of take it personally in a capacity, or you think, man, maybe I am too expensive, or maybe I didn't educate the potential client well enough. And it's never personal. It's
Mhm.
just business. I mean, somebody might take it personally and then tell you, "Hey, man, you suck," uh, but that's not on you. That's definitely the other person. That's
Yeah.
if they're going to come at you in a personal capacity. But it does hurt, and it does feel sometimes like uh, maybe they don't like you or something like that. And that's never the case. That's your ego talking in a capacity where um, you're not thinking about the greater picture. They might be talking to other designers or other architects, or um, where they might have not really alluded to you a budget that they might have felt comfortable with for your services. So don't ever feel like that's a personal attack or anything like that. That was something I had to go over and learn, and I felt like I was learning that in the dark in a way. Um, I have a couple other friends that are small business owners that are in completely different industries, and it was nice to hear from them that, hey, we deal with this too. It's not just you. So that's one side of losing a project, but another side of losing a project is, hey, we've done this design work. We're 6 months in, and the owner just says, hey, this is costing too much, and I just don't want to keep going with this. And then you panic and you feel like there's so much that I did, that I did wrong in this capacity, and what could I have done different? Is the communication problem? Was I not quickly communicating with them? Was I not communicating enough? Was I not adequate, and should I more abilities or not? And you're going to have all these questions, and it's natural. Just know that it's natural to have these questions, but
Yeah.
don't ever take it too hard, or don't ever feel too overwhelmed about it. It's hard. It's coming from somebody who's literally going through it right now. It's um, something that I think everybody should understand. It's going to happen. We're all in business to do this kind of stuff, and you know this happens sometimes. I don't know what other way to put it, but
Mhm.
it's all part of business. And this particular project that I was talking about, where I'm dealing with losing, is a motorcycle museum that's also a kind of like a loft for this individual. He's going to live up there, or he was planning on living up there. He's got $3 million motorcycle collection. We were going to expand off of a warehouse he already has. The goal was to use either a like prefabricated steel building or work with structural engineers to try and figure out how we can make this thing work, because we are going to have catwalks that were hung off the ceiling and everything, and it was really cool. And a big glass wall that overlooked everything. And his all-in budget was about $500,000, and I was like, I think we can make this work. for that price if we're using certain material packages. And it was a huge learning curve because I've worked with structural engineers before, but never in the capacity of steel. And as an architect, I know how to design a wood frame building. I don't have a problem with that, but steel is something that we're not working with all the time. And
Yeah.
so you have to rely on outside experts. And I told the client at the beginning, we're going to have a structural engineer, but I don't think I did a good job of expressing there's going to be more cost associated with hiring somebody else.
Mm.
We went through an exercise of seeing if a well, the design process, the initial schematic design process took, a month to come up with a final product. He loved it. And then the rest of it, just trying to get other people to work with me and give me budgets or give me quotes, that took like another 6 months. And I don't know if I learned, well, I don't know if he was growing frustrated because he never expressed it. But it's something that you internalize,
Mhm.
especially somebody who's like myself and overanalyzes everything. I internalize frustration from a client who's not even telling me he's frustrated. And it's something that you have to work around. You have to understand, like, if the client's not saying anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're frustrated. They might actually understand, hey, this is going to take a while. But we worked to try and get a prefab steel manufacturer to work with us. Those guys, unless you've signed a contract with them, they don't care. They're not going to work
Wow,
with you.
that's
Um, yeah, which is tough. But you call 15 of them, and they give you the runaround, and then you find out you have to sign a contract and give them like 50 grand before they'll actually start doing any kind of engineering work. And needless to say, they won't sign off on anything outside of the box. So then you work with we ended up working with a structural engineer who is also a steel erector and steel supplier, but um, their pricing comes in a little too high, and then we go find an actual structural engineer who can help us. And the client doesn't want to work in that capacity, so he calls me up and says, I think I'm going to call it quits. This is just getting too expensive. Just let me know what I owe you, and we'll just kind of end the project there. So all of that to say, what I've learned is communication's key.
yeah.
Don't ever, even if it's taking a long time between trying to get these different parties to communicate to you, make
Mhm.
sure you're staying in constant communication with your client, giving them realistic expectations, and don't ever let them fall by the wayside. I'm definitely guilty of that. He was very lenient with how long he was expecting this to take, and I took that for granted. While I was waiting for other people to get back to me, these steel erectors or these engineers, I was taking on other projects where I should have probably waited to take on as many projects as I did. But it's something where you live and learn, and communication's key. And don't ever internalize something that's not being said until somebody actually says something, and then ask for their feedback if they're not saying anything. That's something I did. I didn't get a response, but definitely ask for feedback, because you're just going to sit here and you're going to think something and you're going to internalize it, but it may not actually be what your client's thinking. So just always be forward and always be communicating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, losing a lead, it's not something that's always only going to happen in the beginning of your career. It's going to happen
Right.
throughout your whole career, and
Yeah,
like you said, it's not your fault. And sometimes it's just the client just wants a quote. And the hard part about our business is you put so much work into a proposal, and that work, and lots of the time these people are given free estimates and free consultations and stuff, so all that time is wasted. So it's like you're not necessarily mad at that situation, you're mad at all the time you just wasted on that
exactly.
job. And
Yeah.
clients don't usually think of that.
No, they don't. Well, most clients aren't in the same or in a
Oh,
line of work that's very similar, right?
yeah, they just don't
Nobody,
know. You,
yeah, they're not out here giving
which
proposals or
isn't
estimates.
fun.
So
Yeah, which is not a big deal, but yeah, that's good insight. Yeah, communication is a key, and I know I've drawn fault to that as well because it's so easy to when you have a couple of jobs that go really, really smooth, and then you just kind of get going, and you're like, oh, I could take on a little bit more, and then that 1 week hits you that you have like so much going on, and you lose communication with one of your clients, and that could be just a downfall and
Oh
like
yeah.
domino effect.
It's don't ever let that this might be another thing, but don't ever let that bleed into your other projects, especially the ones that are going well. You know, I mean, hopefully you can pinpoint what happened
Mhm.
to cause a relationship to fall apart or something like that. And we're talking business relationships, right? So they're usually pretty straightforward. If you can pinpoint what happened, you can work to change that on the current jobs you have and future jobs. And just it's always a learning thing. When we're in design school, they don't teach us any of this.
No,
So it's it's a testament to folks like yourself who are out here trying to help educate the public or help educate our industry about how we run our businesses so that you know we can mitigate how many mistakes like this that we make.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not going to completely help, but it does bring you to a situation where you could actually like learn from someone else. But and for the most part, you kind of just have to learn on your own. But it does help hearing other people's situations and hearing an outside view on the same type of situation you're going through and figuring out. Because sometimes it's so hard to figure out when you're staring at plans every day of this job and you're the one talking to the client the same way. You don't really know that your tone's different or
Yeah.
your line of communication's wrong, or you don't know that because you're it's the way you always work, or
Right.
it's just you need another point of view in there. So it's nice to hear other people's view on a job they lost or a difficult situation, and that's a lot of what I like to talk about here on the podcast, just for that reason.
Yeah, and just know, like, if you're going through this right now, you're not the only one. We've all gone through it, and man, if you got a question, just DM me. I'll answer it. But the another thing is to kind of touch on not realizing your nose is up in this project all the time, and you need to take a step back. But to go along those lines, you just because you're working on that project every single day doesn't mean the client realizes that. I find myself being like, "Oh, I'm always like, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing all this work for you." But I didn't take a step back and say, wait a second, I haven't talked to him in 2 weeks. I got to let him know. Like, I've been spending 12 hours a day for the last 2 weeks working on your project.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm not neglecting this. It just takes it just takes a long time to get this done for you. So, um, communication's key. And it's something I've never been the best at. Um, I'm like, I have a problem with whatever's right in front of my face. I've got to figure that out right now, and then everything else kind of like goes by the wayside. So uh, it's something we're all working through, but just know that that's gonna help so much throughout your career just to work on communication.
yeah, dude, that's a constant. I mean, that's something not just in your professional career. That's something that helps out in your
Yeah,
personal life too. So
yeah, your interpersonal relationships that's key there too. I've been able to keep a lot of friendships from high school all the way through college just because I genuinely care, and I genuinely care to keep in contact with these folks. And so um, that's just something that you don't have to be. When it comes to friends, like really good friends, you don't have to be texting them every single day. You can
no,
send them a text, every month, every couple months or something like that, and they know. If they're really good friends, they know.
exactly. Well, David, thank you so much for hopping on. I
Yeah, of
feel
course.
I love having recurring guests on, and I'm getting to the point where I'm getting more and more recurring guests. So whenever you want to hop on, I mean, I know you sent me so many topics. We could have another 4 or 5 episodes here. So
Yeah,
let's do it again.
of course. Hey, and if we ever want to do an on-site version of this, like
We
if we
definitely
go out to a project site or something like that, that'd be pretty fun too.
yes, the in-person ones are so much fun. So I'd like to do more of them.
Yeah, we'll get that happening.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you again. Let's plug yourself, website, social medias, everything.
Yeah, website's davidstumpfarchitecture.com, and there you can see the work that we're doing, the portfolio that we've got. Since I've been on last, we've gotten pretty big on YouTube. So you can check me out at David Stumpf, or I think it's Dave or David Stumpf. The first one that pops up. We've got a lot of project videos there, and then Instagram at Dave Stumpf and David Stumpf Architecture. I'm also on Facebook, but that's not that big. But the YouTube stuff is pretty fun. We're doing some full length videos, tours of projects that we finished. And so you get to bring you along, and then like some informative stuff on how to look at a home while if you're looking to buy and renovate. So diving deep into that. And so far that's been growing pretty good. And we've got some good views on those videos. So check if you're interested in learning more, check me out there.
That's awesome. I did not know you were doing that. I'll have to go
Oh
check that
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's YouTube is the social media platform that like seems to really care about creators growing. And
Okay.
like especially if you want to be an education, or like be a someone who wants to educate in your field, that seems to be the best. Instagram's tough, Facebook is tough, but YouTube seems to be the best so far.
Cool. I'll
Yeah.
definitely go check that out. And again, thank you for coming back onto the podcast. Always love having you on. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, of course. Keep it up. I love the episode. I love all the shows that you're doing. So
Thank you
look
very
forward to hearing
much.
more. Yeah.
Appreciate it.